son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We have all your action for the Kasey Masterpiece 400 from our home track, Kansas Speedway. We want to apologize getting this video out a little late with it being a Saturday night race, but Liehr and I have hot passes and we've been enjoying all the race action at Kansas Speedway. So hopefully we'll be able to give you that extra inside information from being trackside to help you put together some winning lineups this week. So far, what we realize is the Chevys look really slow and the Fords and Toyotas look really fast. Stages this week will be at laps 80, lap 160, and then we race all the way to the finish.
Interesting fact about Kansas is the pole winner here has led a significant amount of laps each race in the last 4 years. In 2017, last year, the pole winner led 91 laps, which was Martin Truex Jr., and Ryan Blaney led 83 laps. In 2016, Martin Truex Jr. again led 172 laps, and in the fall race of 2016, Matt Kenseth led 116 laps. If all that points to one thing, and that's to drink a lot of Busch Light beer this weekend.
Weather should be in the low 80s with a slight chance of thunderstorms. If it was anything like the thunderstorms this morning, we may need to seek shelter for a bit, but we should be able to get in the race with no problems tomorrow night. All right, kids, we've got some interesting issues with a group of drivers that failed to qualify, most of which we'll be talking about as part of our picks. But before we get to those guys, we have an issue that Liehr and I talked out on the way home from the race tonight. And both of us, as good as Harvick and as good as Rowdy, Kyle Busch is, and as good as Truex is, we're getting kind of tired of talking about those guys. We want to be clear. Harvick is sitting on the pole. He is the favorite here. If you're not going with the pole sitter, Rowdy, who has the amazing track history here, is who you probably want to go with. And if you're going outside those guys, Truex is just a step behind them. We've seen it all year. Liehr, your thoughts real quick on those three guys before we get into our actual picks.
Yeah, brother. I mean, to me, it's obviously a no-brainer pick to put Kevin Harvick on your teams this week. That team has just continued to show, basically be the number one team in the clubhouse when it comes to speed and basically who's been the dominator this year, and it's been that number 4 team at Stewart Haas Racing. So I know he's really expensive this week. He's $1,100 more than Kyle Larson, and he's almost $1,000 or just under $1,000 more than Martin Truex, and $500 more than Kyle Busch, but he's $11,700 this week. But in my mind, it doesn't matter how much it costs because he's just going to go out there. He's in that number 1 position now on the pole. He's going to at least lead, in my opinion, probably 100 laps. So you got to have him on your rosters this week. And then as far as Kyle Busch, I mean, he always Kansas was one of his thorns in his side, but he broke that streak a couple of years ago, and ever since he's kind of figured out how to run real well here at Kansas. And then Martin Truex, obviously the last 2 years, has just completely dominated this track. So all 3 of those guys are just pretty amazing here. So,
well, and Rowdy took second in tonight's truck race. When he's fighting for the win, he's thirsty, and that's always a dangerous thing for Rowdy, who, thank you for signing my hat. That's why I'm wearing it. I'm bragging. It's awesome. Anyways, Liehr, go ahead and do the honors.
Kansas barbecue Kasey Masterpiece style, baby!
Well done. I think it's awesome that Kasey Masterpiece is the sponsor of this race. That's really cool for Kasey Barbecue. And even though I have some other favorites, those of us that live in Kasey Masterpiece is sort of our export to the rest of the country. It's a great brand. It's good. But those of us here have a little bit more eclectic taste when it comes to our barbecue sauces. Don't we, Mr. Liehr?
Very eloquently said, sir. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own thing that they like here in Kansas City. We've got tons of barbecue spots, some of the best barbecue in the world. But yeah, each one, has its kind of own specialty and what they specialize in. So, but it's always good to partake in every single one of them. So, but love being here in Kansas City and what, Kasey Masterpiece has meant, along with all the other barbecue joints in town. It's just, really put us on the map. So
somebody that's going to agree with Liehr's barbecue take is his burning rubber pick. And I just want to be clear before we get into this. On the way home from the track, this driver was on a list because he didn't qualify with all the other drivers that didn't qualify, and we're just going to talk about them. But then Liehr homered out and decided to do a write-up while I was driving home from the track, and then guilt-tripped me into not wanting to make him redo his write-up. So I'll let him have this one. Go ahead. Tell your burning rubber pick, Liehr.
Thanks, brother. First and foremost, I'll be talking about Clint Boyer. Clint Boyer is completely done a 180. He's a totally different person that what Poppa and I saw in person a couple years ago. He's vibrant. He's funny. He's relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually cool again, man. I mean, he actually was really cool tonight at the track. And, Boyer and Stewart Haas Racing Garage have just been leaps and bounds above the rest of the field so far in this 2018 season. And Clint and the 14 team were not able to get through pre-qualifying inspection, obviously, but we'll be starting the race from the 33rd position. He has 19 starts here under his belt. He's got 0 wins, so he's looking to, get that off the schneid, but 2 top 5s and 6 top 10s. He comes back to his hometown track here in Kansas City, being from Emporia, Kansas, which isn't too far away from Kansas City here. But he's got a lot of coming to the track with a lot of confidence, obviously having that victory under his belt so far in the 2018 season and getting second place last week at Dover. I mean, the whole Stewart Haas organization has just had a very, very successful season so far with Kurt Busch and Eric Amarola. And honestly, I would not be shocked tomorrow by any means if he goes out and eventually makes it to the top of the leaderboard and takes the checker flag. In practice, unfortunately, they only had the one practice today, but he was 5th fastest in overall practice and was the 4th fastest in 10-lap averages. So he's getting more expensive each and every single week. This week, he's $9,000 on DraftKings. And hope you boys and girls out there are also dipping into the FanDuel too, because we'll get into that in a little bit. But he's 10,200 on FanDuel. But get him in your lineups this week. He's going to be massively owned, hugely owned. I'm assuming probably the highest owned driver this week. Maybe a close second to his teammate Kevin Harvick, but he's going to live up to the hype this weekend. To me, it's no brainer. Start your lineups, number 4 and number 14 and go from there.
Right. Which is why we were not going to make him a pick, right? Because it's literally the most obvious play on the track this week. You straight up homered out because he was so nice and signed autographs for us and took pictures. I get it. My question is, are you just giving JMack the shaft because you moved across the state line? Or is it because he couldn't get his car started in round 2 to qualify?
Dude, JMack's been horrible. We've had this conversation. I
know. I just had to throw it out there.
The crazy part tonight is we actually were walking around the haulers. We're standing around RCR area, and Paul Menard's hanging out over there with JMack and Ryan Newman, and JMack's sitting down, and Poppa just his 6'7" frame just goes up, takes the hero card, and I'm right there with him. I just don't even say a word to JMack because you know what? It's just, yeah, I'm over JMack.
It's been epically disappointing.
Yes.
Oh, man. Yeah. Anyways, guys, on to my burning rubber pick. And because I like you guys so much, unlike Liehr, clearly, I went and got one of our viewers this week an autographed Kyle Larson hero card, foreshadowing my burning rubber pick. Yes, that is Kyle Larson. Now, somebody's going to get that hero card. Either you're going to have to like, share, be subscribed, and we'll get that sent out. We'll draw somebody and get that sent out to you. But, guys, I need to be honest. As excited as I am to play Kyle Larson from his starting spot, for the most part at Kansas, he is hot, wet garbage. He only has 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, and 8 races here. But that car was fast. And since we're tired of talking about Rowdy Harvick, Larson is due for a win. We know that this car is due for a win, and he's starting 22nd because he spun out in round 2 of qualified. This was the car that was challenging Harvick for the pole. You get him starting at 22nd. I realize that price tag at 10.6 is expensive. And here's where the interesting play with Larson and Boyer come into effect, in my opinion. When you have Harvick on that lineup, trying to put the two of them in, things become really tight, really quick, and I don't know that people are going to be comfortable playing these guys together. I think I am, and I think that's the route I'm going to go. I love the Boyer pick from Liehr. I'm going to play Larson because I think that if he can break out of this Midwest funk, he will be a must-play starting 22nd. And if not, he'll literally be one of the best fades you ever made in your entire life because the smart people, I think, are going to try to play Larson this week and figure out how to fit him in lineups. Liehr, your thoughts on Larson?
Well, yeah, brother. I mean, look, we go anywhere else on the circuit, and Kyle Larson started from the 22nd position. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, you're going to play that every day plus Sunday. I mean, the only thing is here at Kansas, this is like statistically one of his worst, absolute worst tracks.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, when he went out today and he was second fastest in practice, you know, right behind Harvick, and in the 10-lap averages, he was right there too.
He was so fast, he lost control and spun out.
Yeah, he was number 1 in 10-lap averages. So one thing I also, too, I like to look at as well, I think, you know, when you do look at the 10-lap averages, the higher from lap to lap, I like those drivers better just because that means that they've, you know, been on the track for a longer period of time. So I like it when it's not, you know, 1 to 10. I'd rather have it, you know, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. But like you said, he was so fast in qualifying that he spun out. Expecting that from him after, you know, he had such a good start to the day in practices. So it's a buyer beware on Kyle Larson this weekend. And I think if you know, there's going to be a lot of people looking at that track history. This may be where you're getting him from the 22nd position. This may be one of his lower owned situations tomorrow where there may be a lot less people playing him just based on that, you know, history. And then also that he already spun out in qualifying. So,
and the price.
Yeah.
Well, he was also,
and it makes it hard to get him to fit him in the lineups this weekend.
Right. He was also second on the board in 15-lap averages. I just like what this car can do if he can actually get it to across the finish line, and that is the dilemma that you have with playing Larson this week. All right, Liehr, wrapped up our burning rubbers. Time to go to some value play. Where are you looking for value? And guys, before he gets here, yes, this is another one of the guys that we said we weren't going to talk about because it was a softball. But, you know, I'll let him have it.
Hey, man, I'm tired. I got to work early in the morning. I got to work tomorrow. You know, I'm going with the guys that I really think could have an opportunity and a chance to really perform and give you those fantasy points you need to take it home tomorrow. But I've been going with Kasey Kahne. He's been a source of pretty much fantasy goodness in certain spots this season in the number 95 Levine family racing car. But in his last 3 races, he started in the latter 20s and has averaged 33.6 fantasy points in all of those races. His best finish so far has been 17th, which he's done that in 2 consecutive weeks. Tomorrow, he's going to be starting from the 34th position. He's raced here 21 times. He's got 0 wins. He's got 5 top 5s, 9 top 10s, and 17 top 20s. Kansas is one of Kahne's better tracks that he races on in the circuit, even though he doesn't have a win here. You know, he really has great history at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And this is another 1.5-mile track. And it's not exactly the same as Charlotte Motor Speedway, but it's one of those tracks that Kasey Kahne does really, really well at as far as the design of the track. So his cost this week is $6,300 on DraftKings and $8,200 on FanDuel. I'm not expecting him to go out and perform any miracles or anything based on his equipment tomorrow. But this guy knows this track very, very well. And the proof is basically in his stats. He's also completed 99% of his total laps run here. So as long as he can avoid any issues as far as mechanical issues, car issues, wrecks, and that's the crazy part is here at Kansas, it really didn't start out as a huge wreck environment as far as the track is concerned. But over the years, man, I mean, go back to, last year when we saw Eric Amarola and that kind of snowball, how that changed the career of, Amarola and Bubba Wallace and Danica Patrick. But there's been some pretty significant wrecks here lately. And, I won't be surprised if we don't get any a little bit of carnage tomorrow night as well. So obviously you can't, plan for that. But I think Kasey Kahne, especially at his price point at $6,300, is going to be a great middle-of-the-tier guy, give you a great starting position, and also let you have a little bit of salary relief there to get some of those bigger boys in your lineup this weekend.
Yeah, see, Liehr, I think you owe everybody a full disclosure. The reason why Lear's really on Kasey Kahne is because he got to hang out with him a little bit at the track, tell him about how much he loved him running in the number 8 and how much he loved wearing those pajamas.
Number 8.
Sorry. I said 8.
Number 9.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 9. My bad. The number 9 that was all plastered over your pajamas. Did you even tell him about your pajamas? Please tell me you did.
Not, but I probably should have, right?
You probably should have.
Then he probably would have thought I was a creeper.
I'm sure he already did. No, dude, the problem I have is Kahne and Kenseth. I'm going to group both of them together. I know you only talked about Kahne, but he and Kenseth are both at the bottom of the board in 10-lap averages. He was 30th in fastest laps. I think Kahne and Kenseth are the trap plays this week. I instinctually want to play them, right? I love the fact that they're starting in the back of the pack. But dude, their times were terrible. They looked slow, both of them. Come on, bro. I think my value plays are better in McDowell at 5,400. And I know if Liehr can take the most obvious plays that didn't qualify, so can I, darn it. And I'm going to take the more crafty one that'll have lower ownership, and he's cheaper. Plus, I think you're better off, and he's starting 36. Plus, I think you're better off playing Matty DiBenedetto, who's also cheaper than Kenseth and Kahne. And both of those guys that I recommended were both faster than both Kahne and Kenseth. Come on, man. I'm saving you more money. I'm giving you guys that are faster. And I realize they may not have the track history, but it's all about speed. And you're using, Kahne's track history and how good he was when he was in better equipment, man. He's not in that same equipment.
I get that point, too. I understand that. But I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. And I'm really right there with you, though. I think Kenseth is a trap play too. That's why I kind of really didn't want to go down that road, because I think with him at his first race of the season, didn't practice very well, didn't get out for qualifying. Just all the indicators are pointing that he's probably just not going to have a very productive race. And I think your money can be spent other places at $7,100 for Matt Kenseth. Not saying that I'm not going to have any exposure, because I probably will. Mm-hmm. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to overplay Kenseth just simply on the fact of Matt Kenseth and who he is and what he has been and what he's done at Kansas. Kansas is one of his better tracks. Am I excited to see him race? Hell yeah, I'm excited to see him race. But I just think this is more of a kind of get back into the groove kind of race for him. And I really don't see him getting anything possibly higher than, 25 to 30 range, somewhere in there. But I'm right there with you, though. I like McDowell. I also like DiBenedetto, too. I've had a couple lineups where I've had, both of those guys in there. So not saying that I'm not going to play them, but, I don't know. I'm just really thinking that Kasey Kahne this weekend is really primed to have a good weekend, man.
Fair enough. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, brother. All right, guys.
That's what makes it fun.
Right. All right, now, that and calling you out for being a homer. That was just too much fun. All right, guys, now it's everybody's favorite segment, Go to the Garage, where we get to talk a little bit of trash on drivers instead of just me talking trash on Liehr. Liehr,
which happens quite often.
Hey, dude, it's one of the great dynamics of the show that people love. So
somebody's got to give me a hard time, I guess.
All right, man. Who's your going to the garage pick this week, buddy?
Well, I'm disappointed too, man. This year we're not going to be able to go up on Gatorade Victory Lane and take a picture of the Go Bowling, in our bowling stance like we did in the years past. Now we get to stand with a bottle of barbecue sauce.
There you go.
Most of you guys out there know that each week I try to put myself out there in a way to not just go with an easy pick like this week would be probably Chris Buescher in most people's minds. I'm not going that route, but I am kind of inkling on that route a little bit. But I'm going with David Ragan. It's just one of those guys that this week it was a little difficult to pick somebody, but David Ragan of the 38 Front Row Motorsports team has actually performed really well above expectations so far in this 2018 season. In his last 4 starts, he has a 12th and a 6th place finish. I mean, that is unbelievable for a small team of that magnitude with just 2 cars, and him and Michael McDowell. McDowell hasn't had as great of a season so far as Ragan, but man, Ragan has just really brought his A game this year so far. But he's not had much luck here in the land of Dorothy. His clicking his red shoes just hasn't worked for him that much, but they have also just a ton of issues here at Kansas when it comes to David Ragan. He's going to be starting from the 20th position, which a lot of people probably in the past would say, okay, 20th, that's a no-brainer. I'm not playing David Ragan starting 20th position. He is not a top 20 car. And I understand that, and I get that perspective. But it's been different, this season. He's, started 12th and finished 6th 2 weeks ago. It's been one of those to where you can't really go based off of what's happened in the past from him. But he's usually a great place differential and value, for a really small salary. But this weekend, he's right there at the Mendoza line. He's $6,000 on DraftKings and starting from that 20th position. But in 18 starts, he's got 1 top 10 and 8 top 20s. 2 of those top 20s he actually got last year, finishing 17th back-to-back in both races last year. But before that, he's had some pretty consistent finishes above the 30 mark. But in my opinion, he's qualified too high for this race. And there's just better options, in my opinion, for fantasy drivers with higher ceilings, lower salaries. So some of you out there, will probably, may give him a shot based on his probably ownership percentage being really, really low. But I'm not worried about it, as he's definitely not going to pay off, in my opinion. And his cost this week on FanDuel is also at $6,000. So, but in my opinion, I just think there's better options this week to go with than playing David Ragan and that number 38 from the 20th position this week.
The only problem I have with this is a couple weeks ago you were saying that this is a sneaky
different
play.
Type of racetrack.
I understand that, but he was also in the same range starting. I don't understand your logic of jumping off of him when you said that he's had good performances. If you're going to get the super low ownership percentage, fair enough. I get you not wanting to own a lot of him, or maybe not even any at all. But I don't know. The way he's been racing this year, I don't think that that's a good going to the garage pick, bro. I think that
Boy, you're just all over me tonight, man. Did I piss you off at the racetrack tonight, or what?
No, absolutely the opposite, dude. I think that like the Liehr of 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago would be telling us that this would be a sneaky play for ownership percentage, especially since the guys we've talked about earlier are going to be super high owned. This might be a cool swerve. I don't know. It could be terrible, but it seems like a 50-50 play instead of like a traditional going to the garage play in my mind. But I respect it, dude. You're definitely going with some cojones. I just disagree. And maybe you could say the same thing for my pick, but I'm sending Eric Almirola to the garage, and the dude is super nice and super awesome. But at $8,600, he's starting 4th, and this is one of those simple overqualifications that we love to just skate by on the going to the garage pick with. Almirola has been fantasy gold for us throughout the season, and I think people that don't know what they're doing are going to continue to play him this week, seeing the scores he's put up. But where he's starting is higher than his best finish for the season. The reality is this could be a top 10 car easily, but if he's not going to lead laps, he has no positive place differential potential. And that's problematic, especially at $8,600, as tight as salaries are. You're much better off saving money. You're trying to go after place differential plays that are going to be epically important this week, in my opinion. Liehr, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just one of those things with Eric Almirola. I mean, coming back to a track that obviously shook his world up quite a bit, really put his career in perspective. And, it's just like anything that we do in life. At some point we go through the motions and take things for granted. And I think he realized last year going through breaking his back here at Kansas, really what he's got here in racing and something that he really loves. And he went out tonight, and when we were at the pits and we saw him and he was number 1 on the board, I was really hoping that he would take the pole this weekend, because it couldn't have been a better story line for him to actually get on the pole. But, unfortunately his teammate that's just been kicking ass and taking names this year, and probably going to be the champion by the time the 2018 season ends. But, unfortunately there were a couple other cars that got in front of him, another big name, Kyle Busch, and then Ryan Blaney, who seemed to be performing pretty well here, at Kansas as well. But Almirola is one of those guys that I think he's got a fast car this weekend, and all those Stewart-Haas guys are really dialed in. And don't be surprised if, he does get a top 5 finish this weekend. Will that include any domination or any laps led? Maybe. I wouldn't say a ton if it does happen. You're talking like 10 laps maybe, and that may be a fluke situation there. But as far as paying $8,600 and hoping that the guy could go out and be a dominator, that's just false pretenses there. So one of those guys you can just go ahead and mark the checkbox to him that you're not going to play him this weekend, because he's just not in the right situation to pay off for you and your fantasy teams this week. Great guy, though. Happy to see him succeed in that number 10 this year.
Yeah, and he has 4 top 10 finishes here, but his highest finish is 8th. And I realize that was in the Richard Petty Motorsports equipment, not in this equipment. So maybe he can get it done. I don't think that you're going to be comfortable or okay playing that car starting 4th when his teammate starts in the rear of the field and is coming up through it, and it was just as fast. Right. And you let's be clear.
If not faster.
Right. And let's be clear. You cannot, the lineups will not let you do it, put Almirola, Boyer, Harvick, and Larson on a lineup. You just can't do it. You're out of money.
Right.
So you have to make a choice somewhere, and the math says Boyer is going to dramatically outpoint Almirola.
Yes.
That's why I'm sending him to the garage.
Oh, it's a good choice, bro. While you argue with me, I agree with you.
See, that's because I'm the bomb. No. See, Liehr, if you would just pick the cars I like, then I wouldn't have to argue with you. It's just been a couple weeks since you did that.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. I do think before we get out of here, though, that, kind of a conundrum, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but, you got Blaney starting 2nd, who's had some recent, history here where he's led, quite a few laps. But going through the history at Kansas, you're usually going to get one main dominator, which is the guy that starts on the pole. You're going to get a second dominator, another guy that's usually a top 5 starter that'll, get anywhere from 50 to 100 laps led. And we only got 267. So we're not at, track like last week where we had 400 laps up for grabs. We only got 267 this week. So really focus on getting your main dominator guys that are going to get all your, laps led, fastest laps. But then also you got to have those place differential guys without a doubt this weekend. So.
Yeah, and the interesting part is a lot of people are probably going to be, speaking of the place differential guys, are going to be reaching after a lot of the Chevys that are in that teens range. Elliott starting 17th is going to be intriguing to people. Jimmy Johnson starting 22nd is going to be intriguing to people. I just personally am not interested. Bowman starting 19th. Those are cars I'm not interested in this week, to be honest. I'm going to let other people pick them for the most part. Liehr, your thoughts on those cars?
Yeah, it's been a struggle with the Chevys and the Camaro this year, and they still haven't really kind of found their way yet. And really, when you're looking at it, to say that Larson and Elliott are the fastest of the Chevys, it's they've got some work ahead of them, and I think they're still trying to figure out how they can get that speed and take it away from the Fords and the Toyotas. But until that happens, it's going to be hard to play them. But when you're talking about two guys starting 17th and 23rd, I mean, it's hard not to put those guys into place. But at the same time, you're talking about Chase Elliott, who's 10,300, so top 5 on the board. And then you're also talking about Jimmy Johnson at $9,300. So
I would just rather save money and play the likes of Stenhouse and Bubba Wallace Jr. I think those are, you get the same place differential. You're getting people that are performing better and better equipment than what the Chevys are doing right now. I would rather swerve to those plays.
Yeah, or Austin Dillon, or Newman, or Eric Jones. I mean, nobody's talking about Eric Jones. You know, I know he's starting 12th, but, you know, if he can, you know, find some more speed, he's got some potential there.
Well, dude, and you've got Daniel Suarez starting back in 14th, where he's had a couple of races where he's moved into the top 5 this season and been required to be on the lineup when he starts in those teams. So be careful that Suarez plays lurking there at 6,800 too. So a little bit of bonus coverage there. Liehr, let's wrap up the show, get out of here. First, before we do, want to let everybody know we've got all of the season-long totals updated through Richmond. We're still 2 races behind. We're going to try to get everything caught up by next week. But we have the season totals ready for you to look at and all the Richmond results ready to go. Liehr, so who took down the Rubbin' Is Racing Championship League last week for our season-long championship?
Yeah, brother. First and foremost, let me, I know you just went through all of that, but let me first start off by apologizing to you guys. You know, every week we do this, my intention is to get it done before the next week starts. I've just had gone through some really bad personal stuff this last month, and it's definitely taken a toll on me, and unfortunately it's been hard to keep up with my personal stuff and then work and then what's been going on. So I've been doing my best to try to catch up and get it all caught up. So I promise you guys, though, that we will. You know, not leaving it behind on purpose by any means. So, but last week at Dover, it was DeTuno again. I think it was the second time this season that he's won a race. So he had Clint Boyer, who was a must-own guy with 75 points. Billy Byron with 33 points. Austin Dillon with 29. And then, of course, the number 1 horse of the weekend, Kevin Harvick, which I think is going to be the same thing this weekend, with a 153.75. And then Jimmy Johnson with a 48.5, who we also liked last weekend from that 19th position. And then Double K, Kasey Kahne, with a 35 for a total of 374.25. So love you guys participating in the league. We've got it all up, like Poppa said, and let's get some great participation this week at Kansas. And look for us on TV tomorrow night. And looking forward to it, man. Can't wait to go with you. And hopefully, you know, while we're watching the race, we earn some of that fantasy goodness money, my brother.
Yeah, speaking of fantasy goodness, before we get out of here, the contests this week are a little bit sketch, in my opinion.
Yeah, they should have gone to the garage with them.
Yeah, we should have sent them to the garage, probably. They've got a really cool qualifier on DraftKings. It's at a $77 entry level, which is a weird, odd entry level. But the field size is nice at 169. But once again, it's these qualifiers we run in all or nothing. Other than that and the Super Lottery, a lot of the contests are just really poor offerings. Like
hot, wet garbage.
The 3-entry max $20 tournament, it is only $800 to top spot. Like, and you're playing almost 3 times as many people as you would be for the qualifier, which is just a little bit more money to enter one than you would have your 3 other there. But yeah, whatever. I'm probably sticking to the qualifier only on DraftKings this week and going all or nothing for the live final seat. Liehr, what are you looking at this week?
Yeah, man. You know, to go from a $4 contest, $8 contest, now it's a $9 contest for the big boy 50K to first, which is the track record this week. I'll be putting some lineups in there, but I'm going to be chasing that qualifier again. And also, Poppa had a runner last week, but hopefully we get that changed this week. But, you know, I just wish DraftKings would, you know, make some more contests that were higher paying. And even if it was a higher field, you know, 4,000, 5,000 people at least, to make a 10 or 15K first place prize at a decent salary of, entry fee of, $5 or $10. But honestly, man, I'll be shooting the moon on FanDuel this weekend a lot more. Broke my cherry on that last week and had a good time with it, and I really liked it. And honestly, there was so much overlay last week too on FanDuel. They cut it contest this week, but they have an $8 entry on there. So I'll be putting my focus on that, and then the qualifier this week in DraftKings.
Just a heads up though, if you're going to play some fantasy on FanDuel this week, make sure to double check the scoring and try to understand it. It is quite a bit kookier and different than DraftKings. So you will want to make
the format in general, yeah.
Yeah. So you'll want to make some major adjustments to your strategy over there on FanDuel. If not, you will light money on fire unless things just happen to go your way.
I'll take it.
All right. But the goal for this week is for all of us to win money and for you guys to see Liehr and I on TV trackside at the race. So, guys, thanks again for tuning in. As always, we love having you. Let's make some money this week. Let's win some good money, and good luck.
Thanks for the picture tonight, Kimmy Coon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Let's go racing.